Ready to get back into our Father's Word here at the chapel, and we invite you to get your Bible and join us if you care to today. We're going to pick it up, Numbers chapter 26, verse 31. And kind of summarize where we're at, we've got the final numbering of Israel before they move into the Promised Land. This numbering for two reasons, mustering the troops as God has put out the order at the end of chapter 25 to vex or afflict the Midianites and the Moabites for seducing the people of Israel into idolatry. The second purpose of this numbering, and the reason that it's broken down by family names, where it was not broken down by family names in chapter 1, but in chapter 26 here we do have it broken down by family names, because this count will also determine how much land the people receive in the land of Canaan, in the case of those who would cross over. And then for those who remained on the east side, I'm speaking of Reuben, Gad, and half Manasseh, which we'll get to that petition that they wanted to stay on the east side of Jordan in the next several chapters. So how many people you have in your tribe of Israel determines how much inheritance you receive in the Promised Land. Some of the tribes down in their count considerably. Simeon, we've already covered, went from 59,300 in chapter 1 to 22,200 in this final count before they go into the Promised Land. Judah, on the other hand, the largest of the tribes at 76,500 in this numbering. And we'd worked our way through the tribes to the tribe of Manasseh, and that's where we'll pick it up today, asking that word of wisdom in Yeshua's precious name. Father, we ask you to open eyes, open ears this day. The 26th chapter of Numbers, verse 31, concerning the tribe of Manasseh and the family of Azrael, and it reads in verse 31, "And of Azrael, the family of the Azraelites, and of Shechem, the family of the Shechemites." And these names that you're seeing here are either grandsons, great-grandsons, and in one instance, I believe, only a great-great-grandson of Jacob, who God changed his name to Israel. Azrael, meaning the right of God. Shechem, a word many of you are familiar with in the Hebrew language, meaning back or shoulder. 32. And of Shemaiah, meaning name of knowing, if you translate it, the family of the Shemaites, and of Heifer, the family of the Hepherites. Heifer, if you look it up in your Strong's Concordant, means pit of shame. Smith's Bible Dictionary simply translates it a well. 33. And Zelophehad, the son of Heifer, had no sons, but daughters. And the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Mahlah and Noah, the feminine name or type for the name, the same as the man named Noah in Genesis chapter 6 and the following chapters, but this is feminine. Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They had 5 daughters, but no sons. And this is introduced here, I believe, to introduce to us what's going to happen as the regulations concerning inheritance in the land are given concerning females if the man had no son. And those regulations will be given to Moses by the Lord in chapter 27 of Book of Numbers, and then one refinement to that even in chapter 31, chapter 36, the final chapter of this book. And what was going on here was that if someone received an inheritance in the Promised Land, it stayed in that tribe forever. If you became destitute and you wanted to sell your inheritance, number one, you couldn't. It was illegal to sell your inheritance. However, you could put the land out, meaning for the produce that it was capable of producing. Someone could come along basically and rent your farm until such time as you paid the amount for the redemption, or the number of years had passed that the agreement was for, or until the year of Jubilee came around. And every 50 years there was a Jubilee, and everything was set back the way that God appointed it at the time that Israel went into the Promised Land. The land went back to the tribe of which it was given to. It really didn't belong to an individual. It belonged to a tribe, if you will. And so the daughters of Zelophehad came to him and said, look, there's a problem here, because what, are you going to let our father's name die? Let us have an inheritance in the land. And then the further refinement in chapter 36 will have to do with what happens if, for example, Noah, one of the daughters of Zelophehad, who was of the tribe of Manasseh, married a man of Judah, because normally whoever the female married, she became part of that family, of Judah in this case, in other words, the example. So that's going to be clarified in chapter 36 as well. Verse 34, these are the families of Manasseh, and those that were numbered of them 52,700. Quite an increase from the 32,200 of chapter 1, 52,700, an increase of 20,500. And Manasseh will be the tribe that half will take their inheritance, approximately half, on the east side of Jordan, and approximately half on the west side of Jordan. Interesting to note that in chapter 1, when we have the numbering there, Ephraim is listed first. However, here in this numbering, we see Manasseh listed first and Ephraim second. In chapter 1, Ephraim was listed first because that was the standard bearer for that particular camp, of which Manasseh was a member. But here the increase of the Manassites noteworthy enough that they're listed first, while Ephraim decreased in count, as we'll see. These are the sons of Ephraim after their families of Shuthelah. Shuthelah means crash or breakage. Evidently he was maybe a little bit clumsy around the tent or something, and therefore that was the name that they gave him. The family of the Shuthelites, and of Becher, the family of the Bachrites, of Tahan, the family of the Tahanites. So 3 families mentioned so far of Ephraim. In 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 20 through 27, too, we find that Shuthelah was an ancestor to Joshua, the son of Nun, who will be appointed to replace Moses and will actually lead the children of Israel into the Promised Land. Becher means young or firstborn. He's called Bered in 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 20. Tahan, if you translate it, means station or camp. Verse 36, and these are the sons of Shuthelah, of Eram, the family of the Iranites. And Shuthelah being a grandson of Jacob, therefore Eran a great-grandson of Jacob. Eran, I might make a note, is called Edan, E-D-A-N, and the Dalith and the Rash, an equivalent of the R in the English and the D in English, are very easily confused. If you have a Strong's Concordance, you can go to the Hebrew dictionary. The very beginning of it, you'll have a list of the various letters in the Hebrew language, and you'll note, you can see there how close the Dalith and the Resh are, and very easily confused, especially by tired copyists' eyes. Verse 37, these are the families of the sons of Ephraim, according to those that were numbered of them, 30 and 2,500. These are the sons of Joseph after their families. Joseph meaning double fruit, and certainly he recognized by having both of his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, would be founders of tribes of Israel. Now, Ephraim down somewhat. They were at 40,500 in chapter 1 of Numbers, 38 years later at 32,500. However, Ephraim would become the largest of the 10 tribes, the northern tribes, as they were called after the nation split after the time of Solomon. And in fact, Ephraim, the name of the tribe, became synonymous with Israel, meaning the 10 tribes to the north, because it was by far the largest of the 10 tribes to the north. And here we see Ephraim listed again second, where they were listed first of that particular camp before Manasseh in chapter 1. 38. The sons of Benjamin after their families, of Bela, the family of the Belaites, of Bela, by the way, means gulp, and it can also mean destruction, as if in someone were to swallow up their enemies, for example. Of Ashbel, which means flowing, the family of the Ashbelites, and Ahiram, the family of the Ahiramites, and Ahiram meaning brother of height. 39. And Shupham, meaning serpent-like, the family of the Shuphamites, of Hupham, the family of the Huphamites. Hupham meaning protection, if you translate it rather than transliterate it. Verse 40, continuing with the tribe of Benjamin's families. And the sons of Bela were Ard, and that probably means to wander, and Naaman, which means pleasant or pleasantness. Of Ard, the family of the Ardites, and of Naaman, the family of the Naamites. And these were Benjamites. Verse 41. These are the sons of Benjamin after their families. And they that were numbered of them were 40 and 5,600. And 45,600 here, 35,400 in chapter 1. Quite an increase in Benjamin. But Benjamin, quite an increase to be one of the heavier populated tribes here, but it wouldn't be too far down the road. It's written in Judges chapter 20, verse 47, because the Benjamites began to worship the gods of Micah, which were teraphim and little carvings, if you will, decided that it was better to worship them than Yahweh. And the other tribes of Israel proceeded to whittle the fighting men of Benjamin down to 600. So not very many of them, just a few centuries from this point in time. We're at about 1452 BC as this numbering occurred, as Israel prepares to move into the promised land. 42. These are the sons of Dan after their families. Of Shusham, Shusham is called Hushem in Genesis chapter 46, verse 23, and it means humble or humbly. The family of the Shushamites. These are the families of Dan after their families. Shusham, and according to the Smith's Bible Dictionary, means pit, digged. 43. All the families of Shushamites, of the Shushamites, according to those that were numbered of them, were 64,400. 64,400, the second largest of the tribes, only to Judah, and they had grown from 62,700 in chapter 1. Now, Dan, did you notice there's only one family? It's a large family. It's 64,400, but all of Dan are Shushamites. I think that's the only of the tribes that only had one single family. In Revelation chapter 7, when you have the nation of Israel, the tribes of Israel listed there, Dan and Ephraim both are omitted, and it's because they had fallen into idolatry. And however, they are not to fear. They are reinstated in Ezekiel chapter 48, which is even further down the road than when Revelation 7 comes to pass, both, of course, being future. 44. Of the children of Asher, after their families, of Jimnah, Jimnah meaning prosperity, the family of the Jimnites, of Jeshui, which means level, the family of the Jeshuites, of Beriah, the family of the Beriites, and Beriah meaning in trouble. Verse 45, of the sons of Beriah, of Heber, Heber meaning community, the family of the Heberites, and Malchiel, the family of the Malchielites. That probably a term that most of you are familiar. You ever heard of Melchizedek? And you know what that means. It means king of the Zadok. So Melcha, you see here as king. You probably know what El is. El is God. And here we have king of God, probably more appropriately translated, the king appointed by God. Verse 46. And the name of the daughter of Asher was Sarah. Well, woohoo, let's hear it for the ladies out there. For once, well, it's happened more than once, but not very often do you see it in God's Word that the women are mentioned as things come down the pipeline. Now, Jacob had a daughter who headed up a family. Her name was Dinah, and you can read about her in Genesis chapter 46, verse 15. But here we have a granddaughter of Jacob, Sarah. And why was she listed? Well, I think it's probably because she never married. And therefore, she did, though she did start up a family. How that's happened, I don't know, but maybe we'll know in the eternity. But here we see the ladies mentioned, and once again I'll say woohoo for the ladies. 47. These are the families of the sons of Asher, according to those that were numbered of them, who were 53,400. 53,400 of Asher, quite an increase from 41,500 that we saw in chapter 1. Do things God's way, receive His blessings. If you don't do things God's way, He'll rob you of your children, as it's written in Leviticus chapter 26, the cursings of God. 48. Of the sons of Naphtali, after their families, of Jaziel, Jaziel meaning God will allot, which I think at this point in time that younger generation is probably ready for God to allot, because that means they're entering the promised land rather than wandering around in the desert. The family of the Jazielites, and Guni, which means protected as well, the family of the Gunites. 49, concerning the families of Naphtali, of Jezer, meaning form, and the Smith says that it means power, the family of the Jezerites, and of Shillam, which means requital or reply, can't even be translated avenge, the family of the Shillamites. And these are the families of Naphtali according to their families, and they that were numbered of them were 45,400, down from the 53,400 in chapter 1 to 45,400. In verse 51 we have the grand slam total of the fighting men of Israel. Verse 51, these were the numbered of the children of Israel, 600,000 and 8,730. 600 and 1,730. You may recall the first numbering in chapter 1, the total was 603,550. An important numbering for several reasons, mostly to the people of Israel. This determined how much land your tribe received. And if you calculate the total of the land, of course, being 100%, but if you took the 601,730 and divided it into the number of people in each tribe, the tribe of Judah, the largest, 76,500, Judah received 12.7% of the total land mass according to that calculation. On the other hand, you have Simeon, which had 22,200. Simeon would have only received 3.7% of the land mass of Canaan, less than a third of what Judah received. The more people that were in the tribe, the more land that they received as inheritance. 52. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Unto these, all that were just numbered, the land shall be divided for an inheritance, according to the number of the names. Less people, less land; more people, more land. Poor Simeon. 54. To many thou shalt give the more inheritance, and to few thou shalt give the less inheritance. To every one shall his inheritance be given according to those that were numbered of him. Those that sinned against the Lord more, lost in land and inheritance and population. Those who did things God's way were blessed, and their inheritance was increased. And it's written in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 33, that it is God who decided who would receive what inheritance in the promised land, as the distribution was made by lot. In other words, the Urim and Thummim drawn from the priest breastplate, the ephod in the breastplate, was utilized, no doubt, in determining who received, which tribe received which land. Notwithstanding, the land shall be divided by lot. This would eliminate the need for jealousy and strife among the tribes of Israel. According to the names of the tribes of their families, they shall inherit. And that name, whatever tribe was placed on a particular piece of property, as I said earlier, it remained with that tribe forever. And as far as the word lot, it carries forth even in today. If you live in an incorporated area or a residential area, and you look at the description of your property, and it will probably say Meadowland Subdivision Lot number 465 or whatever. But that term lot, and this is where it came from, was which land was given to which tribe of Israel by lot. 56. According to the lot shall the possession thereof be divided between many and few. And the actual distribution of the lands would not occur until Joshua chapter 13 and the following chapters are written. And it would be Joshua and Eleazar, the high priest, who would be responsible for making sure this was done according to the way the Lord intended. Verse 57, what about the Levites? And these are they that were numbered of the Levites, after their families. Of Gershon, the family of the Gershonites. Of Kohath, the family of the Kohathites. Of Merari, the family of the Merarites. And a separate numbering, you may recall, was held for the Levites in the first few chapters of this book as well. The first numbering of the Levites was not for the purpose of going into battle, because they were numbered, remember, from 1 month old and upwards. That first numbering in Numbers for the Levites was for the purpose of redemption. God claimed the firstborn male of every family when he brought Israel out of Egypt. When the death angel passed over and took the firstborn of all, and God claimed the firstborn male of all families at that time to serve in the tabernacle. He changed that to be the entire tribe of the Levites, and therefore there was a swap out that was to be done and some redemption money paid as a result of that back in chapters 3 and 4, you may recall. But the Levites to receive no inheritance in the promised land, this numbering will also be from 1 month old and upward, as we'll see. These are the families of the Levites. The family of the Libnites, these were of Gershon. The family of the Hebronites, these being of Kohath. And the family of the Malites, being of Merari. The family of the Mushites, also of Merari. The family of the Korathites, this was a grandson of Kohath. Itzhar was his father. And Kohath begat Amram. Now, we've got some discrepancy here because we've got some people who were left out. We had Shimei, also of Gershon, in chapter 3, verse 18. We also had Yitzhar, which I mentioned is the father of Korah here. And also then we have Uzziel, who was left out and omitted. Uzziel and Yitzhar were descendants of Kohath. They were Amram's brothers, and they're omitted as they were listed in chapter 3, verse 19 here. What is the reason they were omitted? Well, we kind of see the families of the Levites cut off right at this point here. And I think the reason for it is that it's to bring focus back on the descent of Moses and Aaron, possibly. But as far as the point that this numbering has to do with how much inheritance you receive in the promised land, it's a moot point with the Levites, is it not? Because what are they to receive in the promised land? No inheritance, the same as God's elect will receive in the millennial kingdom. Ezekiel chapter 44, verse 25, and the following verses will document. 59, and the name of Amram, now this is the father of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, was Jochebed, that was their mother, the daughter of Levi, meaning she was of the Levites, whom her mother bare to Levi in Egypt. And she bare, unto Amram, Aaron, and Moses, and Miriam, their sister. Jochebed was actually Amram's aunt, his father's sister, and he took her to wife. That was legal at that time, as the laws of incest had not been given at that point in time. Now, Miriam is listed last here, but if you read Exodus chapter 2 with understanding, it becomes very clear that Miriam was quite a bit older than Moses, and I think therefore older than Aaron as well, because as Jochebed placed Moses, who was just several months old at the time, in that little ark and placed him in the Nile River, you remember Miriam stayed and watched to see that it was Pharaoh's daughter, I believe it was, who came across the baby Moses in the ark and took him in. And in fact, Miriam was pretty good with some covert activity there, because she got it swung to where Jochebed was hired as the nursemaid to her own son Moses as a result of Miriam's actions. All that's in Exodus chapter 2, verse 60. And unto Aaron was born Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And of course here we have the priest line. God said it will be the sons of Aaron who will be responsible for serving as mediators between myself, God speaking, and the people of Israel. And Nadab and Abihu died when they offered strange fire before the Lord. They had just been consecrated as priests in Leviticus chapter 9, chapter 8 and 9. And then along came Leviticus chapter 10, and what happened? Well, they took on a little self-willed religion. They decided that it would look real holy if they presented some fire incense before the Lord. And I think what happened was the strange fire, they didn't take the fire from the altar of the Lord. They took it from a regular campfire, which probably had some buffalo chips in it, and presented it before the Lord, and it made God angry. He struck them dead. And I think they might have been partying a little heavy and celebrating their consecration as the priest, because immediately after God struck Nadab and Abihu dead, he gave the instruction to Aaron and Moses that the priests were not to drink strong drink before they enter into the sanctuary to serve the Lord. And possibly that was part of their problem, but only Eleazar and Ithamar survived, and due to the zealousness of Eleazar's son Phinehas, who ran the Israelite man and the Moabitish woman, or Midianite woman, I should say, back in chapter 25, in the act of having intercourse, ran him through with a javelin, a spear, to stay the plague. That seed line, the priesthood was, the high priesthood was to stay in the line of Eleazar from that point on. 62. And those that were numbered of them, of Levi in other words, were 23,000, all males from a month old and upward, for they were not numbered among the children of Israel, because there was no inheritance given them among the children of Israel. God was their inheritance, and as I mentioned a moment ago, God is the inheritance of the Zadok, his elect in the millennium. Ezekiel chapter 44, give the Zadok no inheritance in the land, because I am their inheritance. What better inheritance could anyone ask for? Our Heavenly Father owns everything, and we inherit Him. 22,000 in chapter 3, verse 39, 23,000 here numbered of the tribe of Levi. And, of course, understand these families of the Levites had specific responsibilities. We learn those in chapters 3 and 4 of this book of Numbers, as far as picking up stakes and moving the encampment of Israel from one location to another, the tabernacle more specifically. But as they moved into the Promised Land, for example, at the time that Solomon built the tabernacle there, it wasn't necessary any longer to pick up the tabernacle and move it. So we saw quite a bit of reassignment of the Levites as far as their duties and responsibilities in First Chronicles, such as many of them became porters, which you could think of as doorkeepers or possibly security. Also, we had the singers who were responsible for the musicians, if you will, and all, again, had different responsibilities, and the age that they were numbered into service as Levites also changed at that time. Well, we'll come back in our next lecture, and we've just completed the numbering. That generation who was judged to die in the wilderness just about dwindled down to nothing, and the remainder of them will soon die. We see Moses is told to get his house in order in the next chapter, and we'll come back and see how all that turns out in our next lecture. We've got a short message we'll ask you to listen a moment, won't you please?